Good to see all of you today. We're happy to have some of those warm bodies up in Huntsville. We're a little cooler here today. So we had Huntsville today. We did not go up this morning, but we trust they had a wonderful service, and we had a slot to fill in today, and I thought of the in accord, which we occasionally do for the sermonette time, but I thought I would go ahead and serve in that capacity today, and I mention serve because that's the subject of the sermonette, service. Well, what's the big deal about service? We talk about serving in the church, and we've mentioned that and emphasized that for years and years. And so what's all the big talk about service? Why is that important? What's it all about? You recall that Jesus made the statement, "But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant." He that's greatest will be your servant. That's totally contrary to the world and its perspectives on things. Theirs is who's ever in control, whoever has the authority, whoever rules, they're the greatest. The servants are the least important. Jesus flips that around. The greatest in the kingdom of God are the ones who are serving others. That's pretty powerful and pretty important. He that is greatest among you will be servant, or simply it's better to give than receive. Again, what's our nature? Give me as much. You're better off getting whatever you can get and accumulate. Our nature is get, not give. But it's better to give than to receive. Those are some of the fundamental concepts you find in the Bible that go against human nature, but you begin to learn and try to have faith in and understand. I guess I could say that most people wish to serve God. Maybe we could say that. Most people do wish to serve God, but it's in an advisory capacity. Not really serve God as He would want them to be. I was very pleased last week with the teens and their service to the senior citizens. There was a lot of preparation that went in that, and I'm sure they got a lot out of it, a lot of satisfaction. Certainly the seniors enjoyed it very, very much, and the people I've talked to this past week, we talked about that brunch that we enjoyed last Sabbath before church. That was an important lesson for them to be reminded of. I think so many times children growing up today often grow up with an attitude that it's all about them. It's about meeting their needs. What do they need? What do they want? What do they get? What are their demands? And not so much about maybe giving to others. So what should we know about service? I have some points here. Now I tell the people in the giving the sermonettes 3 points. 3 points. When you give, I'm on the spot here, of course, in giving the sermonette, and see if I follow my own instruction. So I tell them to give 3 points when you're giving a sermon, no more. So how many do I have today? I have 10. I have 10 points today, but we're not expounding on 10 points. It's like a listing of them for you. Like a listing of the 10 Commandments. So we'll be on time here today. All right, let me list these points for you. You can write them down. Won't elaborate on all of them, but they're all important about the subject of service. Good reminders for us. Point number 1, service begins small. Service begins small. Let's read Luke 16:10. Luke 16:10, this is a very important fundamental concept. Luke 16:10. This is the parable of the unjust steward. But we'll just read verse 10. Jesus brings out the important principle. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. If he's unjust in least, he's unjust in much. In other words, what you do in the most basic way. If we're honest in everything we do, you can be trusted as being an honest individual. God looks at us and sees what we're doing, how we're living, the decisions we're making that may be small but are based on right and wrong. And if we're that kind of person, if that's our character, we can be trusted with much. But if you're unreliable in small things, who's going to give you anything of a greater value? So that's important. A service begins small, not in the great and the grand and the large opportunities to serve. Sometimes a person will think, well, once I get something important, then see what I can do. Maybe you think of that, and oh yeah, we're not a very good employee, but boy, make me in charge. Then I'll show you how I can really be dedicated to my work and do the right thing and so on. Or it begins small. Service begins very small. Might be just very normal or ordinary things in the congregation that we begin with. We're not just handed things, whether in the church or elsewhere, things that are important. Point number 2, service begins with physical duties, not spiritual. I know sometimes, as the Bible said, be not many teachers. We like to gravitate towards the spiritual. Mark chapter 9, verse 41. Mark 9:41. Service begins with physical duties, not spiritual, at least in the church context. We prove ourselves in physical things. Mark 9:41, for whosoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name. What a small thing. Just give a cup of water because it's the right thing to do, because you're a Christian, meaning in Christ's name it's within the context of what he would have us to do. Whosoever shall give you a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ, verily I say unto you, he shall not lose his reward. Just a cup of water. Something small, something physical. That kind of person can be given greater responsibility at another time. So we'll think of service beginning with physical duties, and it beginning small. Point number 3, service is not for recognition. It's not to be recognized. They'll see me. I'll get some kind of service where I can get up on stage, where I can be in front of everybody. I can be walking down the aisles, or I can be noticed. That's not the purpose of it. Now, Franklin Roosevelt's closest advisor during much of his presidency was a man named Harry Hopkins. During World War II, when his influence with Roosevelt was at its peak, Hopkins held no official cabinet position. Not a cabinet member, no great appointed office at all. Moreover, Hopkins' closeness to Roosevelt caused many to regard him as a shadowy, sinister figure. He was kind of disheveled in his appearance, and he was so close to the president that people kind of didn't trust him. As a result, he was a major political liability to the president because people didn't like this Hopkins. A political foe once asked Roosevelt, "Why do you keep Hopkins so close to you? You surely realize that people distrust him and resent his influence." Roosevelt replied, "Someday you may well be sitting here where I am now as President of the United States. And when you are, you'll be looking at the door over there and knowing that practically everybody who walks through it wants something out of you." Everybody coming in trying to get something for the president. You'll learn what a lonely job this is, and you'll discover the need for somebody like Harry Hopkins who asks for nothing except to serve you. Not an impressive individual, no great office, but he was dedicated to serving the president. Winston Churchill rated Hopkins as one of the half-dozen most powerful men in the world in the early 1940s. He was one of the most powerful men in the world because of his influence on the President of the United States, the most powerful. And solely of Hopkins' power was his willingness to serve. That's what got it to him. Not his wealth, not any kind of greatness, not any office that he held, all on his service. Became one of the most powerful men in the world just through that. That's how powerful it can be. Point number 4. We'll get through these 10. Point number 4, service is not for promotion. In other words, it has to be from the heart. I'll do this to be noticed. I'll be serving, and they will surely promote me. That's not the right motive, the right intent. Yes, often there is promotion through service, but that is not why we do it. We serve when there's no gain as the expectation, no calculation. Well, if I can do this, if I figure that, I'll get ahead this way. That isn't what godly service is. Point number 5, you serve first behind the scenes, not out in front. You serve behind the scenes, not out in front. And many of you do this. Things I'm not aware of at all that are going on in the congregation, helping each other, people showing up. Even last week again for the teen things. And the mans were coming, trying to come Friday evening, set up, and did a lot of work. A lot of other people were doing things that maybe aren't noticed. We serve first behind the scenes, and the willingness to do that, not so someone will notice. Service is not for feeling better than someone else. Look what I do. I'm superior to others. I'm doing all of this. They're not doing anything. Not for feeling better than anybody else. There's no respect of persons in service. Remember that account in the book of James? Oh, here come these wealthy ones, the well-dressed ones. Oh, come right up front. Sit up here. Can we do anything for you? Welcome to the congregation. And, well, I'm so-and-so, and can I get you anything? Well, let me show you around, because they're wealthy. James brought out that account, I think, in chapter 3. Said, don't be a respecter of persons. So when we're serving, we're not respecting people. We're serving where there's a need, not calculating who it is that we are serving. Point number 8, service takes sacrifice. It's generally, we're not serving if it's easy or to our benefit. Generally, we're sacrificing in some way, time, energy, effort, might be money. Service does take sacrifice. Number 9, service sometimes means allowing others to serve. Service sometimes means getting out of the way and letting others. Now, we joke in the church that if you're given a job, you've got it. And often there's I don't want that. I'll never be able to get out of it. I'll have it for life. You've got it. Great. You're willing to do it? Great. It's yours. And a little bit of a reluctance from time to time about, oh no, how long will I have to do that? How long will I have this? Sometimes it goes on for quite a few years. But sometimes once we get a job, we won't let go. That's been the case too. Sometimes you get a duty, a responsibility, a position perhaps, and we don't want to let it go. Let somebody else have a chance at that. And we all want to feel useful, and none of us want to feel, pushed aside or set aside in any way. But sometimes serving is letting someone else have that opportunity. Give somebody else a chance. That's a form of serving them, serving others in that way, not holding on for ourselves so that we do it forever. So we try to do that in the congregation, pass on things to the next generation coming along. All the leaders are dedicated to trying to do that, give others the opportunity. We should never think of any job of serving in the church, that's mine. That belongs to me. How dare they take that away from me? Or the pastor, I've run into, how dare he think to pass that on to somebody? This is mine. I have this. This belongs to me. There's no job in the church that belongs to somebody. You may be fulfilling that and doing a good job and naturally the one to do it. But the jobs do not belong to anybody if they're associated to the church. And finally, point number 10. Point number 10, service doesn't stop. We never stop serving, because we read earlier about the attitude, how fundamental that attitude is of service. This is what we do. We have different capacities. We don't do it the same way, but we all have an attitude of serving where we can, where it's appropriate, where it's right. So what's the big deal about service? Let's conclude in Matthew chapter 20, verse 28. Quick 10 reminders about this topic. What's the big deal about service? I hope we see how important that is and what a role it plays in our lives and in the church. Just in this quick review. Matthew 20, verse 28, here's Jesus. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, though he were a king, though he was the Son of God, a king. He didn't come to be served, but I came to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Christ believed in service, and that is what made him great. These are principles that are important to our lives, and they continue in whatever capacity we can do that. So what's so important about service? As Jesus said, greatest is the servant.